All right, in the meantime, we will get started. So once again, welcome. And at this time, we will be introducing the panelists from the Touch of Life Foundation. My name is Maidna Sarin, and I am the president and co-founder of the Touch of Life Foundation.
My name is Ishani, and I'm a board member for the Touch of Life Foundation, and I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Hi, my name is Avni, and I'm a board member for the Touch of Life Foundation.
Hi, my name is Meghana, and I'm a board member for the Touch of Life Foundation.
Hi, my name is Nayan, and I'm a board member for the Touch of Life Foundation.
Hello, my name is Kushan, and I'm a board member for the Touch of Life Foundation.
Hi, my name is Aiden, and I'm a board member for the Touch of Life Foundation.
So as you know, this program is sponsored by the Touch of Life Foundation, and we wanted to let you know a little bit about our organization. It was founded by my brother and I, Kushan, in 2016 with a mission of rescuing children from exploitation, labor, and trafficking. Our goal is to educate and empower women and children to fight for their rights. Our journey began in 2009 when we visited one of Kailash Satyarthi's orphanages in India. He explained to us what the children had been through and why they were staying at the orphanage. He inspired us to make a change, and we wanted to help right after that. After that, we started yearly bake sales and fundraisers, and eventually in 2016, we created the Touch of Life Foundation to spread more awareness and to get the community involved.
So we want to understand a little bit about what our participants already know about the topics of human trafficking and child labor, just to basically get a feel for where we are as a group. So if you'd like to tell us anything you've already learned about human trafficking and child labor in the past, we encourage you to put it in the chat. We'll be using the chat and Q&A features quite extensively throughout this program. So whenever you have a question or comment, just let us know in the chat and we'll address it as quickly as possible. So let's take about a minute to share what you guys may already know about the topic.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue. These are all great responses, and we can tell you have a solid foundation. Throughout this program, we will be building upon this knowledge. Meghana will start out by discussing human trafficking.
All right. So the official definition of human trafficking is the trade of humans for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, or commercial sexual exploitation for traffickers or others. Essentially, it is when someone is forced or manipulated to do things against their will. How many people do you think are trafficked each year in the United States? Let us know your estimates in the chat. Someone said 1,000. Okay, that's a nice estimate. 1 a day. Okay. 1 a day on average. Okay. 80%. Someone said, do you mean 80% of the population? Someone said too many. Of course, yes, there are many. 100,000. That's a good estimate. Is that 200,000? Mm-hmm.
So these are all really good estimates, but it actually might be surprisingly higher than you thought it was. Around 800,000 men, women, and children are trafficked each year in the United States. In fact, a large majority of domestic trafficking occurs in the states of Texas, California, New York, and Florida, which are some states that you guys might live in. Of course, these are some of the most densely populated states in our country, so that dramatically increases the risk of trafficking. Also, since we have an international audience, maybe some of our participants can relate to this map, which shows different countries. And these are places that the annual report on trafficked persons has deemed high risk or tier 3 countries for human trafficking. So let us know in the chat if you know any of these countries and if you can name any of them, and we'll take about a minute to do that.
We've got Afghanistan, great response. These seem like safe cities. I thought New York, there is trafficking everywhere, but where these X's are, it's more prevalent. Someone said the Philippines. Yeah, great response. The DRC.
Very close.
Vietnam. Nice. Venezuela, Colombia. Yeah. India and Pakistan. Venezuela, China, Philippines, Baltic states, and Poland. Great responses. Russia. North Korea.
Correct. That was one of them. So they're all really good responses, but specifically the countries that are on this map are Venezuela, the Central African Republic, Belarus, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, and the Philippines. However, it's also very important to note that human trafficking is far more widespread than this and takes place in many more countries, like US, Canada, and more like the ones you guys named in the chat. These are just some of the most prevalent. Now Emily will discuss child labor.
Child labor is when children are forced to work as adults do and take part in economic activities for someone else's profit. This means they cannot attend school, and the work they do can be dangerous to their health. The work that children may be subject to can oftentimes be physically, mentally, emotionally, or morally harmful to the child. There are important similarities to note between human trafficking and child labor. Both use the process shown in the next slide to coerce or force people into work. They are not willingly doing it. Both affect people of all classes, races, genders, and other demographics because this problem is truly widespread. 215 million children are forced into labor each year, and millions of people are trafficked each year. Finally, children and teenagers are especially vulnerable to these things since they are at an impressionable age. It's important that we make kids this age aware of the signs and precautions. The process that traffickers use to bring in vulnerable men, women, and children consists of 3 steps, which include recruitment, in which they lure in individuals, transportation, where they bring victims for work, and finally exploitation, where they are involved in labor. This process will be analyzed more in depth with stories.
We are now going to show you a series of videos where people recount their experiences with the human trafficking process. First, survivor Marky Dell will share her recruitment process into human trafficking and sexual exploitation. We want you to think about how relatable her situation is and how you can learn from her story to be aware of your own situation. In the future, we will continue to follow Marky's journey in upcoming presentations.
Like many of you, I didn't know what human trafficking was. I also thought pimps only existed in rap videos. But I remember the exact moment I found out they were real. A police officer handed me the book named Pimpology, the 48 Laws of the Game. I started to read and quickly realized that what had been happening to me for the past year had a name. I was human trafficked. Today, I'm going to share with you my story and let you in on the secret to inner peace and freedom. My name is Marky Dell, and I'm a human trafficking survivor. I want you all to think of a teenager you know who's shy, awkward, insecure, has a hard time making friends. That was me. Then a cool girl befriended me. She was everything I wanted to be, popular, had the looks. She wanted to be my friend. She invited me to her birthday party. I happily accepted. She picked me up from my home in Hamilton, Ontario, and she drove me back up to her place in Toronto. We had a fun night celebrating her birthday. The next morning, I was under the intention that she was driving me back to my dad's home in Hamilton. We ended up in an unfamiliar parking lot, and I could see the Toronto airport. She parked the car and said, "You owe me $600 for the rental car, for the gas, for the club entry, and the drinks last night." I was confused. I knew I did not owe her any money. And where had my friend gone? She reaches in the back seat, tosses me a bag. It had a bikini and heels in it, and said, "Go dance." We were at a strip club.
So there are many ways victims are recruited. Marquis' story was just one example of recruitment through abduction. Many times a trafficker will pose as a boyfriend or girlfriend to gain your trust. Once they have made the victim emotionally independent on them, they start asking for small favors for the sake of their relationship. They might say, "If you really care about me," or "I really need this," or "if you really love me," or a combination of those lines, basically guilting the victim into doing things they feel uncomfortable doing. Recruitment can also take the form of the trafficker staking out the victims online and posing as someone they are not. For example, Jane gets a friend request on Instagram from this really good-looking guy named Jake that appears to be about her age. They begin talking, and he showers her with attention and says he wants to take her shopping to buy a purse that she really wanted. He tells her he will pick her up in a parking lot near her house, and he'll be in a black Jeep. When she goes to the parking lot, she sees the black Jeep and gets in, but she quickly realizes Jake is about 49 years old. She tries to leave, but he threatens that he'll hurt her and her family if she leaves. Since Jane gave all of her personal information, Jake knows where she lives and all of her personal information.
Traffickers often lure victims in by false job promises. They promise the victim a better life and education. When the victim gets to their destination, their IDs are taken away, and they are forced to work in harsh conditions with little to no pay. They work many hours a day with insufficient food and are many times threatened with violence if they do not perform the work.
Some families might not be aware they're trafficking their child. They may be looking for a better life for their child, and if someone tells them they will take their child abroad and put them in an amazing school, get them new clothes and a good job, some vulnerable parents might unknowingly send their children, thinking it's for the child's betterment. In reality, the trafficker takes the child and sells them to someone else. The child does not get paid for the work and never goes to school. When the victim's family asks about their child, the trafficker tells them false stories about how well the child is doing and if it's better that he or she does not come back. In other cases, a family member might actually sell one of their family members because they might have been promised some money in return. In other cases, a family member might be forced to work to supposedly or even out of debt by his or her ancestors and may or may have not been taken.
Traffickers will send out their top girl to try to recruit other girls, sometimes by flaunting their new clothes or jewelry. The top girls try to lure other girls to the trafficker. She might try to get other girls because she's been offered money for each recruit she brings in, or she was threatened with violence if she cannot recruit a certain number of girls. Transporting victims could include transporting them by cars, train, bus, ship, truck, or any other means.
Sex trafficking. Women more than men are forced to engage in prostitution. Although more common with girls, it also happens to boys. Forced labor. As mentioned earlier, victims are forced to work in unsafe conditions and are often threatened with violence. Illegal organ donation. Traffickers will make money by selling organs from the trafficked victims to people desperate for a particular organ due to organ failure. They are willing to pay a very high price for these organs, and this industry is very lucrative for the trafficker. It is estimated that the illegal organ donation industry is about $1.7 billion annually. Kidneys are the most common organ to trade. Slavery, forced child labor, and child soldiers. Child soldiers are used in terrorism and warfare because they're easier to intimidate and brainwash. They do not demand money, and people do not suspect them.
This next story is about Faraday, an 11-year-old girl who must engage in grueling labor to sustain her family.
Early every morning, Parody pulls a cart through town hauling water for neighbors. When it's full, the tank weighs about 450 pounds. After doing morning chores, the hardest part of her day begins. Instead of going to school, she goes to work in a brick factory all day long. It's hard, tedious work, often in temperatures above 35 degrees. Each family gets paid by the number of bricks they load. Parody's mom is getting older and weaker, so she needs Parody and her sister to help.
So the stories we saw about Marky and Faraday are very descriptive examples of how people are recruited into trafficking and the kind of labor that children have to do in the child labor process.
It is also important to know the resources you have available to you. If you suspect something or are unsure, the National Human Trafficking Hotline is available to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they have resources for over 200 languages, so it is very accessible. They are also available either by text or call.
Okay, I think that will be it for today's session. Thank you guys so much for joining and great job participating today. So we will see you guys next week, and don't forget to do your assignment and spread more awareness. Thank you guys.